Very good question. I lived in a city, in a little town in Sydney where there were no Koreans and there were no, there was nobody actually. It was very small. But for the longest time I actually felt, when I grew up, I always felt like I was Australian. And it never occurred to me that I was Asian. No, none of my friends, Australian friends, kind of put that pressure onto me. And then when I came to Korea, it was a huge culture shock. Everything was, I can tell you that for my first day in Korea, I got food poisoning. And I spent the night throwing up in the hotel room. And I later learned it was just because different bacteria in the food. It wasn't food poisoning, it was just my stomach wasn't used to Korean food. The city was so big, so many people, cars moving everywhere, big buildings. Where I'm from, I think the biggest building in my suburb was like 3 stories higher. And in Korea it was like everything. The one thing that, and this really helped me when I entered the Korean workforce, was the military. That taught me Korean, bad Korean. I learned all the bad Korean first in the military. And so, I don't know for the Koreans here, but just as an example, just for the Korean people, my first, in Korean we say left, 뭐 자해전, 우회전. I learned 자양자, 우양자, 우양우 first. So I actually learned the military word for left, then the civilian word for left in Korean. So basically, when you say it's behind you, I learned 뒤로 돌아. And when I first took a taxi out of the military, that's what I told the taxi driver. So I was like, hey, 아저씨, so we have to go 우양우. And so basically I was speaking military Korean to everybody. But I learned Korean culture there, like the male culture, I guess. I don't want to be sexist, but I learned the male culture a lot. And then when I joined the company, when I first joined the Korean company, I wasn't on there actually. My first Korean job was working at a bank. But when I first joined the Korean company, I actually immediately connected with all the Korean males because we all had a shared experience. And from there, they kind of taught me more about working in Korea. So I know a lot of my foreign friends that work in the Korean company, they still have a lot of culture shock. And there's a lot of complaints about some of the ways the Koreans do their work and stuff. And that's understandable because, from different cultures. For me, I had that to a lesser extent because I think, I don't want to say this in a very negative term, but it was very, okay, let's try to make this positive. I learned the worst of Korea first. I can't say that. I learned the hardest part of Korea first. And then I worked up. So everything else for me, when I met with Koreans, was a bonus. Was like, oh, this is nice. This person's not shouting at me, and there's no kicking. And so, thank you. And Thomas, I guess, Thomas.
My name is Thomas Kang. I'm the director of the Global Leader Program here at Bugil. The question that I have is, part of our forum this week, we cover politics, economy, environment, sports, culture, all of these things. And to engage in some of the negative thinking that Dong-Young spoke of earlier today, just to put that into practice, as a way of sort of thinking towards the future and being realistic. To what extent is sports and also other cultural sort of patterns that we engage in, to what extent are those things really beneficial as tools for diplomacy or for international relations? Does it really work? Is there, especially from the point of view of the IOC?
Great question. Let me just give you examples to answer that. The International Olympic Committee have a program called the Olympic Truce Program. Truce as in not fighting. I think this program comes from the ancient Olympics. Basically, back in the day, where the Olympics were held in Olympia, a lot of the athletes traveling to Olympia will have to go through enemy territory to visit, to participate, and they were getting killed. King Iphitos, I think he was a Spartan king, he created the first ever truce for the whole of Greece. And that was for the Olympics. And he declared 7 days before the Olympics, 7 days after the Olympics, nobody will fight. And we'll give safe passage to all the spectators. And this has led to the modern Olympics. And I'm actually in charge of that program. I'm in charge of the Olympic Truce program. And basically there's an example would be during the Sydney Olympics, that what happened was North Korea and South Korea actually walked on the Olympic ceremony, the opening ceremony with the Korean flag, like the Korean map, Hanbando flag, I don't know what that is in English. And they walked together for the first time. And that was part of the Olympic Truce program for Sydney, where the organizers for the Sydney Olympics convinced South Korea and North Korea, okay, this is sport. It's not about your political views. Let's come together, and they did. And there's a lot of other programs that we run about this. And the important thing is sport, it doesn't look at, race. It's sport. If you look at professional athletes, they all have one common goal, and that's to play sport. And I think it's not just for international athletes, but also for students. Sport can be a way to break conflict within the school community as well. Like as in, if bullying, there's cases in Rio where in the favelas, they started introducing sport to all the students. I don't know if you know what a favela is, but it's basically like a slum where a lot of drug dealers and then it's just crazy gangs and everything. And a lot of the schools there, a lot of students that went to the favela schools ended up becoming drug runners and gang members and stuff. And through sport, teaching these students sport, it kind of took their minds away from all that negativity. And a lot of them actually ended up, going to college. So like there was a school in Rio where one kid he was the first person in that school to go to college. And that was because he started playing sport through the Olympics. So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits for the international community to play sport. I mean, for me, I've attended a lot of conferences run by the Olympic Committee, and there's been North Korean delegates there, and I remember the first time thinking, ooh, North Korean delegate and South Korean delegate, it's going to be quite interesting. I'm going to hear, see what happens, some excitement. But no, they were very friendly. They knew each other, and it was very cordial. I mean, and they respected each other, and it was because through sport. So I mean, yeah, there is a lot of negative sides that you see on the news. About bribery, the whole FIFA scandal. I mean, to be honest, the International Olympic Committee doesn't have the best reputation as well. Bidding and paying for it and all that. But deep down, everybody that works in the Olympic Committee and the National Olympic Committees, I think they all work because they have that fundamental feeling that sport is pure. It does not know any barriers. There's no politics involved in sport. Not at an international level anyway. So, yeah. Okay.
We will receive one last question from the audience.
Oh, at the back there.
Hi, my name is Kyuan and I'm a senior in Bugil Academy. Previously you told Wonyoung that you should try everything that you can do and you find interesting, and actually I did. I am kind of a person who do things I think interesting, and actually I thought if these kinds of experiences accumulate in my life, they would lead me to a certain focus, but I think since I did a lot of things in diverse fields, it actually made me more confused because I can't really think of a way of how I can balance out those things. So can you give me an advice on what should I can do?
Yeah, I mean, trying a lot of things, yeah, I said that's really good too, but I mean, let me ask you a question. Why didn't you, why did you only try it once or twice? Or is there any activities that you're still doing?
Well, I've been doing robotics in Bugil, and I have been doing some kinds of activities in the field of law.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still kind of doing a little bit of things in art.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've been doing those kinds of things for like 3 to 5 years in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I like all of those, so I don't know what to choose. And because I'm a senior right now, I have to write an application for the college in the US, and I don't know what field I should actually like go to.
Yeah, well, I can't personally answer what major you should select in school, but the only advice I can really tell you is out of the three, I'm guessing there's more. There must be something that stands out a little bit more for you. Anyway, the one thing that I can really advise is, like, if you select a major in university, there's always a chance to change halfway through. So I mean, don't feel pressured. I mean, for me, I just wanted to push it out and graduate. But I mean, I've had friends that kind of went 1 or 2 years of a course and then kind of switched majors. So I mean, don't feel like the first major you choose will bind you to that. So I hope that gives you some advice. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for the insightful presentation. And at this point, we would like to have a short 5-minute break so that you guys can move around, stretch your legs, and
then we'll proceed.
yes, we'll proceed in 5 minutes.
가스로 왔어.